let's spend a little time talking about how to justify Dewey Decimal Classification numbers. So I want us to look at this book, Manya's Dream, A Story of Marie Curie. And this is your third exercise on your practice assignment. And remember, the object of classification is to decide, what is this book about? Okay, so we're assuming it's about Marie Curie. So I want to check, though. It's always good to check and see what your book is about. Now, I don't have it in front of me. However, if I did, I might also do what I'm about to do as well. We're going to go and we're going to check. I like to use Amazon. So I just want to see what the book's about. What is the description of the book? So I'm going to go down here and check, read what it's about. It's on her inspiring life. It says it's a picture book biography. And then I keep looking down. We go here, children's books, biographies. Okay, so it's about Marie Curie's life. Now, I know that your library may have a section just for biographies. So you might not even want to assign this book a Dewey Decimal number. But I wanted to give us just some practice on kind of a straightforward book that would go into Dewey. I know in the IRC, when I classify books and I get, excuse me, a biography, we actually have a biography section. So we name it BIO and we don't use a Dewey number. Instead, we do it just like we would a fiction book. It gets the BIO, and then it gets a cutter number, and the IRC, and so that we find them that way, and they're in their own section. Not everybody does that, and that's okay. It depends on your library, depends on your students, depends on how your classification has been done classically, because having to change all of them, whoa, sometimes that's just a nightmare, but sometimes it also has to happen. Okay, so let's practice with this book. So it's a book about Marie Curie. So we'll go back, what we're doing. Now, how do I figure out what the Dewey number should be? Some of you may have a copy of the abridged Dewey book. So you could go and you could do a search of the relative index for possibly not her name, but what was she? Okay, she was a chemist. So you would look under chemists. And if you do look in the abridged, and I have the book, the abridged 14, sitting here beside me at the moment, and you look in the relative index for Marie Curie, she's not there. But if you look under chemists, you get the number 540.92. So you get this number. Now, I didn't ask you to purchase the abridged Dewey book, because instead we have access to the online version of Dewey. And you should be able to log in given the number and the password that I provided you. And when you first enter the Dewey site, you get this little welcome screen, hello, hello, okay? Now, I don't want this, I want Dewey. So we go up here to Dewey Services, and we get Web Dewey. The nice thing about Web Dewey is I could type in either Marie Curie or I could type in chemists. I'm going to type in Marie Curie. Whoops, I can't spell it. And I'm going to search for that. And we get back 2 possibilities. All right? Now, when we look at the first possibility, this is from Table 1, 0.0922. And what's going to happen is this. Now, let me go back. I take it back. I got a little ahead of myself. If you look in Web Dewey, when you see the little puzzle piece, that's the built number. Okay, that's the number that Web Dewey recommends for works about Marie Curie. All right. What this means is, in the manual, there are other tables. Table 1, where we can get even more specific about the work. So yes, this is a work about chemists, but if I want to use .922, that means it's a collected biography. So let's see what that means. So if we go in, this will be table 1, okay, and use this number for a work on 2 people collaborating in the same field. So if we had a book about the Wright brothers, it would be 629 point, yeah, that. If it was about Pierre and Marie Curie together, it would be 530.0922, right? But for us, this is not a combined, it's just about Marie Curie, not both of them. So we're going to ignore this altogether. And in fact, a lot of times in our school libraries, we don't get this in depth. Look at this down here. Wow, okay. That's a big number. And some large libraries get this big, all right? Now, so we're going to go back to our search. So we're going to go with this, 540.92. That's the number that we got when we looked in the actual relative index in the book and when we typed in, whoops, Marie Curie's name here in Web Dewey. So they match. Yay. All right. So we come in here and, all right, we get some information. So for our purposes, being a school library, most of our collections are relatively small. It's usually safe to use and I say safe, that's might be the best word, but we usually use the numbers, the shorter numbers. Now, we have 2 choices here, okay? These little puzzle pieces mean we have 2 possible choices for acceptable numbers to assign to this work, all right? So, and it just depends, again, on how specific your collection gets. So we can't stop it at the 540. We have to keep going because it's not just about chemistry and allied sciences. It goes a little further than that, okay? And I like to at least go out a lot of times, depending on the subject matter, but when we're working with biographies, when we're working with really specific subject matter, to get as specific as possible without going into too much detail, like we talked about the table a minute ago. That's getting way too specific, all right? We want to be able to look at the number and us know, okay, that, okay, I'm putting this book about Marie Curie in with all the other books about chemists. Not just a history of chemistry, because it's more than that. It's a book about a chemist. So I want to go that one more piece of specificity with my number, all right? So when we look at the number that we're given, okay, we see that it starts with 500s for science, okay? So it's science. So when I ask you to justify a Dewey number, what I want you to break it up into each piece, just like I'm doing here. You don't have to gray out the numbers, all right? You can just put them as they come. But it starts with the 500s. That's the base number. It's science. And then the next category it falls under is chemistry. Because the science is considered, there's zoology, there's biology, there's anatomy, chemistry, physics, there's those different pieces of science. So we have to put it in its proper science discipline, which is chemistry. Okay? Then the 540, so the 54 is that next place value. My old math is coming out. Okay, so first place value is the 5, that means science. 54, chemistry. 540, okay, it's chemistry and allied sciences. So we've specified it even a little further. All right. Then we go to 540.9, getting that one more place of specificity, which is the history of chemistry. And again, this book is not just about the history of chemistry, it's about a certain chemist. And when we continue to look deeper, we'll see that, okay, 540.92 is the classification number for chemists. So that's where we stop. That's our number. And this, all right here, and without the box at the bottom, is our justification. Okay? It's like almost building backwards. We know the number, And then we want to say, okay, here's how we got there. So we know it's science, then it's chemistry, then it falls under chemistry and allied science, then I know it's history of chemistry, and then it's chemists. And as we look at this, okay, this number was built for us by Webb Dewey. And we look at it and we say, does that make sense? Yes. Second question is, does that make sense for my collection? Is that where I would put this book in my collection? And this is where we come to that conversation we had at the beginning of this video, is that, okay, am I going to put this in the section, in the chemistry section with chemists, because is that how my patrons would expect it to be organized? Or would I put this book in a section of biographies? Because they would probably be more inclined to look at biographies and find this volume, this work there, than for chemists. Because not very many of my patrons, students, people who come use my library are really looking for works on specific chemists. Okay? It might be that maybe you have more than one copy. You have it in those two different places. Because a student working on a chemistry project might be looking for chemists. And when they would go to the chemistry section, they would kind of expect that there would be books there about chemists. Might have another student looking for biography. So it all comes down to making a choice that's best for your library. But this is how you would justify. This, when I ask you to justify numbers, this is what I want you to do. Break it down into each of its pieces.